From the WXXI studios, this is Backstage Pass. It's not uncommon to find families making music together. In fact, several have graced our studios. There's a special connection that seems to translate beautifully to chamber music when they perform. I'm Julia Figueras. Today on Backstage Pass, violinist John Irrera and his brother, pianist Joseph, join us to prove that point. This broadcast of Backstage Pass is made possible in part by a grant from the Gouverneur Arts Fund at Rochester Area Community Foundation, encouraging support of the arts. It's a family affair next on WXXI. Welcome to Backstage Pass. I'm Julia Figueras, and it's an all-brother team today with the Irrera Brothers performing for us. I'd like you to meet our violinist, John.
Hi, nice to be here.
Great to have you here, John. And at the piano, Joseph. Hi, Joe.
Hi, pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you guys here. I thought maybe today we would start at the very beginning. You are both local guys.
We are. We grew up in Batavia, New York, just half hour from here. Not from a too musical family, as you would be surprised to hear. Music was always a part of our lives from an early start, but not the classics you would think that we've been playing all our lives. Our mother was actually the one that always had music on in the house.
And what was she listening to?
Well, that was the Van Halen and the Aerosmith and all those types of things, which is great music. But that was our first, I would say, experience with music as very small children.
But I read that you started your violin fairly young. How old were you?
Yeah, I started when I was in first grade, and I ended up signing myself up for violin lessons because the school music string teacher came into our class in the fall and just showed us the instruments, and I said, I like violin, so I signed myself up. And she ended up not having any space because lessons were already booked. But she said in January after break, they usually have people drop, so she'll let me know. And my mom got a phone call in the second week in January. She goes, this is Cindy Baldwin from the Batavia John Kennedy Elementary School, and your son, we have room for him now. He can take violin lessons. And my mom had no idea. She was surprised. She's like, okay, violin? Yeah, where'd this come from?
Yeah, really. So what's a heavy metal mom think about your classical sons?
Well, even before that age, before school, that's when she would start playing games with us, rhythm games, and we would have to march to the music, just simple things like that. And, not knowingly, she installed into us a, basis for rhythm and music and beat. So my start on the piano was when I was 5. And I remember on, it was Sesame Street. I would watch that, and there was a saxophone owl. I forget his name, his character. But I thought the saxophone was the coolest thing. So I wanted to play sax when I was 5. And unfortunately, we learned that I was too young to start on sax. My lungs needed to develop, and I needed to get bigger. So the music store we went to in Batavia said, why don't you start on piano? And I actually was not interested. And my father convinced me. He said, well, if you start on piano now, when you're old enough for the saxophone, you'll have a good start. You'll have, the notes and rhythms and everything. You'll be able to read music. And when you can start sax, you'll have a head start. So I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And it just took off from there.
Well, now, obviously, a violin is a little more transportable than a piano. Did you have a piano put into your house, Joe?
Well, at that age, we started on, the standard, a little electric keyboard. And students of mine now, when they're just starting, the parents express, we don't want to invest all this money. We don't know if they're going to like it and whatnot. So, yeah, we started with a little electric keyboard, and then within about maybe 5 or 6 months, I had a couple little tunes, but they were complicated for a 5-year-old. I had them all memorized. So my parents figured, well, now we have to get something a little more substantial because it is taking off, and he does enjoy it. So we got an electric keyboard, full-size keyboard. And that was with me for a couple years until I started at the Eastman Community School. Actually, it was called the Community Education Division back then, with Alla Kuznetsov. And she would not have it that I play on a electric keyboard. And now I understand, what she meant. But back then, my parents said, oh, well, we didn't know there was much of a difference. And she goes, no, the touch is all different, and he needs an acoustic piano. So we got a baby grand.
So what is it like as musicians when you have obviously supportive parents, but parents whose musical taste and training aren't quite aligned with you? Where does that magic happen where somebody understands, where they get that this is what has to happen for my kid? And how do you talk to your parents about the music?
Well, both parents were always very supportive, which is great. We couldn't have done any of this without their support and guidance. And over the years, whatever made us happy, whatever we wanted to do, they were always supportive. So whether we wanted to play football or baseball or whatever it was, music, they were very supportive. So when we expressed an interest in classical music, and they were just very, very supportive. And we have now taught them and got them interested more about classical music. So now it's in the entire family.
As we progressed in classical music, their tastes have changed as well. So now my dad listens to like the Mendelssohn Reformation Symphony, and he's like, "Oh, when I was young, I would never have thought of any of this. I had no idea." So it's evolved.
Well, good on both of you. A little bit of education goes both ways, apparently. Our guests today are the Irrera Brothers, and they are going to be performing for us today. It's kind of a family affair, not just having brothers, but they will be playing the works of a husband and wife team, starting off with the first two romances of Robert Schumann's Opus 94, live from Studio E. Two Romances, Opus 94 by Robert Schumann. There are three, and we will hear the third with the Irrera Brothers coming right up here on Backstage Pass. John is our violinist, Joseph our pianist. John, was there an aha moment when you were a kid when you knew this was just where you had to be? This is just what you had to do?
I would say, well, when I started playing, like I said, I signed myself up. I was just naturally drawn to it. But I think the moment when I really decided that I wanted to do this as a career occurred later on, probably in 8th grade or so. And I went to go see the RPO, and they performed the Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto. And I just was like, oh, I need to play that at some point. And that was the moment when I was like, okay, this is probably my life's career.
Do you remember who the soloist was?
I don't recall off the top of my head.
Was it Nadja Slern of Sonnenberg?
I heard her play the Mendelssohn. I don't think it was the Tchaikovsky, but yes.
You were in the RPYO as well.
Yes, I was in it for 4 years, and I was fortunate to be the concertmaster my senior year.
What is that like when you get that call?
To be the concertmaster?
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. We had seating auditions. I believe they're held in September, and the audition went well, but I wasn't sure. I had been sitting a couple stands back the previous year, so I was hoping. But when I got the mail, to send a letter back then, that with the seating chart, I kind of glanced from the bottom of the violin section, and I was looking up, and I didn't see my name, and finally it was there at concertmaster. I was very excited, and in that year we programmed a lot of rep. We did Scheherazade, so got to play that solo piece, and also Rimsky-Korsakov's Capriccio Espagnole. So I got a workout that year with the RPYO.
What does a youth orchestra do for you?
Well, it was with the youth orchestra. It was the highest level of music that I'd performed. With all the local talent coming together and working together, but also just a sense of camaraderie with everyone else. Working together as a team, and it also it was the first full. Well, I played with Hochstein Youth Symphony, but going on tours and having those fall retreats really cemented things, and it helped my playing a lot just by working on big rep.
This is an experience that you, Joe, didn't get as a pianist.
Well, you may not know this, but I was also in the RPYO.
Were you really?
Yeah. I had mentioned earlier that I wanted to play the saxophone. And when I was in 4th grade, I did start that. And to my surprise, didn't like it as much as the piano. And then in 9th grade, I actually decided to start a string instrument, and I started the double bass. And I auditioned the year after, I remember, for the HYSO, the Hochstein Youth Symphony, and was accepted. And then the year after that, I auditioned for the RPYO and was accepted for my last 2 years of high school as a bassist in the RPYO.
Did that experience help you as a pianist?
Yeah, immensely, very much. In addition to just being, engulfed in all the other repertoire besides piano music, it helped with working with others and listening for balance issues in the orchestra, and that transferred back to when I play piano and balance between my hands and voices within a hand. So I've always been a firm believer that in music, the more you can do, the more you can venture into. It all helps each other. Whether it's my saxophone helps piano helps the sax, my orchestral experiences help everything. So it's really a communal art form, I would say. So
at what point did the Irrera Brothers become the Irrera Brothers?
That was in 2009. We made our first Carnegie Hall appearance that April. It was Easter Sunday, I remember, and the whole family flew to New York. And that was the first time where, we had always played together in the past since we were young, but that's when we decided, okay, we'll call it the Irrera Brothers, and this is something we want to pursue. We got to Carnegie Hall that year as a result of the American Protégé competition. And funny thing, John submitted his application, and I submitted my application, each separate for he was the violin division. I applied obviously for the piano, and we actually honestly didn't know each of us were applying to this competition. And we found out after we both had won, because it's you make a self-recording and send in the recording, and that's judged. So when we got the acceptance notification, the winning notification, we were just, totally shocked that we both had won separate divisions.
Great for your parents, too. Two for the price of one.
Exactly.
And lucky for me, John, of course, needed a pianist to play with him at his winning performance in Carnegie Hall. So first, he and I walked out on stage, played his piece, and then they programmed me right after, and I walked out and played Chopin's Fourth Ballade that day on the winner's concert.
What was that moment like, walking out, John, walking out onto the stage to perform at Carnegie Hall?
Well, it's something you think about, when you start taking violin, just, the prestige of Carnegie Hall. When they opened the door and the lights came in and I saw the stage and the green chairs, it was, it's exciting. It took you aback a little bit. You were not shocked, but you were excited, and you were overwhelmed with, the prestige and the history that was at Carnegie Hall. So that was my first moment, and then I was like, okay, I need to get ready to perform. So
did it live up to the Carnegie Hall mystique?
Yes, yeah, the hall's wonderful, great acoustics, nice stage. It was everything I had hoped it could be.
Well, you have returned to Carnegie Hall, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. John and Joseph Irrera, or the Irrera Brothers, join us today on Backstage Pass. I promised you the third of Robert Schumann's romances, Opus 94, and this is it on Backstage Pass. The third of Robert Schumann's romances, Opus 94, played by the Irrera Brothers on Backstage Pass. Production of Backstage Pass is made possible in part by Glatley Pianoforte in Canandaigua, offering Kauai acoustic and digital pianos and rebuilt American pianos, providing service and renovation for stage and studio on the web at glatleypiano.com. So you played in Carnegie Hall together, but John, how else does one get into Carnegie Hall other than competition? And please don't say practice, practice, practice.
Practice. No, kidding. Well, we're actually going back to Carnegie Hall this coming February. It's February 22nd. And, well, I should first start to talk about last year's Carnegie Hall performance, our second one. That competition we had entered separately in 2009. We decided in 2010, or 2011 it was, to enter as an ensemble, because there's also an ensemble division. So instead of separately, now we tried together as a duo, and to our delight, we're welcomed back to perform again on their winners concert. That was last March. While we were in New York for that concert, we came in contact with Mid-America Productions. It's a production agency, and they invite artists and arrange concerts in Carnegie Hall. And they were the ones that arranged for this coming Carnegie Hall appearance, which will be solely the Irrera Brothers, just us on the program. So that we're excited about that.
No pressure there. Just you guys. No pressure at all. Oh, does the magic ever wear off on Carnegie Hall? Now you've walked out on that stage twice. Does it get old?
No, I don't think it can ever get old. It's exciting each and every time, and each time you come, you try to perform better than you did the last time. It's a step. Constant improvement, and it's just wonderful hall, wonderful acoustics, and just a wonderful setting.
So how do you set your repertoire for your recitals? And in this particular case, Carnegie Hall, but how do you guys choose what you're going to play? And then how do you order it for a flow?
Mm-hmm. Well, for this upcoming February, we were in a lot of talks with Mid-America Productions and what they would want to see as well on the program. So it depends for each venue and each concert. Who do you expect your audience to be? What audience are you targeting? And that has a lot to do with it. And Mid-America was able to, offer their suggestions. So for that concert, we decided to mix some big pieces, from our recent CD. We have Prokofiev and Beethoven, so they requested that those two be on the program. And we also wanted to put some lighter things, not so much lighter, but just smaller works. Each one of those pieces is about a half hour. So in addition to that, we'll be playing the Vitaly Chaconne and the Clara Schumann, which we're going to share with everyone today. On that program.
So it's saying that you're going to choose your music to match the audience and the place you're going. You were just in Costa Rica. So, John, what'd you take down to Costa Rica with you?
Well, we actually brought the Prokofiev and the Beethoven with us to Costa Rica, as well as the Clara Schumann. We performed, and also the last piece we're going to share with you guys today, the Falla Danse Espagnole. That was a little encore piece we performed. So we, in talking with the organizers in Costa Rica, they recommended us playing some Beethoven or some classical standard rep, nothing too avant-garde and modern. And then we brought the Prokofiev as a nice balance with the early romanticism of Beethoven, some feisty Prokofiev, and then the De Falla was they love that as a encore.
So what was the experience in Costa Rica like?
That was a lot of fun, that trip. We did have some time to sightsee and get to the beach, which was just absolutely gorgeous. It's the most beautiful beach I've ever seen in my life, and I've been to a lot of beaches. The beach, what was the name of that beach?
Manuel Antonio
Beach. the mix of nature and well, actually, the lack of mix in nature and man's intervention, because a lot of the beaches I've been to along, say, the Florida coast, there's lots of condominiums on the ocean, and here it was just a serene rainforest that came right up to the beach, and the wildlife there was just the things we have never seen in person. Only watching the Discovery Channel, monkeys swinging from the trees above our head, and the sloths and snakes. It was just quite in a way, primitive experience to be just in nature like that. So besides all the fun we had and the fun on stage, that was also an amazing experience in Costa Rica. The audience there was very receptive of all the music we played, and especially the Defaya with the Hispanic Latin background of that piece and the fiery mood of that piece. But they were very receptive, and we had to sign hundreds of autographs after, and the halls were packed, and it was just a very nice experience.
John, is it different playing in Costa Rica? Did you get a very different feeling from that audience than if you were playing in the United States?
Yeah, not. I mean, the audience in Costa Rica was very warm, and I mean, there was a bit of a language barrier, so a lot of communication was done through hand gestures and whatnot. But after concerts, they'd come up and they'd ask to take pictures with us, maybe because we were foreigners. But we don't get so much of that when we play in the States, pictures and whatnot. So that was the biggest difference, but yeah.
A little taste of that star treatment.
Yeah.
Our guests today are the Irrera Brothers, and having just heard Robert Schumann, we will now listen to Robert's wife, as they mentioned. Here is the Three Romances, Opus 22 of Clara Schumann. This is Backstage Pass, and we are live from the Henry Epstein studio at WXXI. Three Romances, this time by Clara Schumann, played by our Backstage Pass guests, the Irrera Brothers, on WXXI. I'm Julia Figueras, and as we compare and contrast Robert and Clara, the Clara Schumann is actually kind of a happy romance. The Robert Schumann, a deeply felt romance.
Yeah, and I don't know if they had that in mind to complement each other's romances, but they do make a nice balance to be programmed together. The Robert Schumann are almost, you could call it like a song without words, and his ability to create a flowing gorgeous melody is, apparent in that work, and it's just a great piece. We really enjoy playing it.
You both went to the Eastman School of Music for undergraduate. Now, clearly, you could have chosen any number of schools, but starting with you, John, why did you choose the Eastman for undergrad?
The main reason why I wanted to go to Eastman, besides its international reputation, was to study with a professor I've been studying with for numerous years, Professor Zvi Zeitlin. I took a lesson with him in December before the January through March audition circuit music majors have to take their senior year, and that lesson kind of changed my life. He was just so demanding, and I knew that through studying with him, my level of playing would just grow.
He was a notoriously tough teacher.
Yes.
Very, I don't know, spiky at times. How do you navigate those waters when you have a teacher like that?
Well, at first, my first year, it was difficult, to get through lessons in which, things could go pretty roughly. But once you got to the point where you realized that he was there to help you succeed, and that it wasn't a personal, attack or what you may say, but it was just because he wanted you to perform well, to grow as a musician and as a person. Once you learned that, then it was easier to handle.
You were getting your DMA with him, and he passed away. So, what happens when that happens?
Well, it was devastating. I had studied with him for my undergrad, my master's, and my first 2 years of my doctorate, and it was so sudden. We had just completed the year, juries had finished, and then he passed away several days later after completing his teaching load for his 45th year at Eastman. So it was rough. I went to the funeral and everything, but I had spoken with professors at Eastman after this about what to do next, and now I'm happy to say I'm studying with Professor Agostini, recent new faculty member at Eastman from Indiana University.
And formerly from I Musici. How is he?
He's wonderful. Yeah, I've had several lessons with him.
I'm sure he's very, very different from Zvi Zeitlin.
Yes. Much different style of teaching and everything, but it's very refreshing. He's not as rough, not rough at all. But he has great ideas, and it's been a joy working with him this past month.
Have you found things have altered significantly with your new teacher?
You mean with my playing, or?
Yeah, with your playing.
Not so much. He'll have different ideas with phrasing and bowings and fingerings and whatnot, which are good to have. But I mean, it's not drastic or anything. Nothing posture wise or anything.
Now, Joe, you also chose to do your undergrad, your BA at the Eastman School of Music. Mm-hmm. Why did you choose the Eastman?
Well, both John and I had been at Eastman's since we were small kids. I was 11 when I started there, and my teacher was Alla Kuznetsov, and she's the one who really installed music professionally in my life and got me to where I needed to be upon graduating high school. I stayed. Well, in addition, obviously, to Eastman's reputation and the education that you can receive here, I didn't want to leave home. I wanted to stay close to home, and I had many options for my undergraduate after auditions. I was happy to say I was actually accepted everywhere I applied, but Eastman was my first choice, not only because of the familiarity of it with me, and I had been there so long, but also it was close to home and family, and didn't want to move.
But your paths sort of professionally or scholastically did diverge because you ended up getting your master's at the Peabody Institute. Yep.
After I finished my undergrad with Ann Koscielny here at Eastman, I went to Peabody, where I studied with a Russian teacher, Alexander Starkman, and that was wonderful. It had brought back, because I had a Russian teacher from Alla most of my childhood, so I was back on the Russian path, Russian school, And that was just a wonderful experience. At that point, I was, ready to venture away from home a bit. I was only away basically 3 semesters. I did my master's in a year and a half. I finished a bit early at Peabody. But it was a nice change for a bit to be in a new atmosphere, city, and experiencing life on my own for a bit.
And back you came for the DMA at the Eastman School of Music. Compare and contrast briefly these two schools. Are they significantly different in feel, the Peabody and the Eastman?
Well, they both have, the history and tradition and a great name. So as far as that being different, not so much. Peabody being in Baltimore, there was a little more to do in Baltimore. Rochester's great, but one thing that I loved about Baltimore is that it didn't get so cold. And we had a little dusting of snow one morning, and yeah, they didn't cancel, but they postponed school. And I can't remember one time, and we all know the snowstorms we get here in Rochester, that Eastman was postponed and never canceled in my memory.
That's right. We're hardy stock around here.
Yeah, so we know how to deal with it. But my time at Peabody was very enjoyable and productive, and it was just enough time to be away from home to experience that before coming back for the DMA.
Our guests are Joseph and John Irrera, and they're going to be playing one last piece for us today. This is I love the word feisty, so I'm going to use this, the Danse Espagnole from La Vie de Brève by Manuel de Falla, arranged by Fritz Kreisler on Backstage Pass. Manuel de Falla's Danse Espagnole from La Vie de Brève, as arranged by Fritz Kreisler and played for us today on Backstage Pass with the Irrera Brothers, John the violinist and Joseph the pianist. We've been talking about, you were talking about teachers. You are both teachers. So what kind of teacher are you, Joe? Are you a nice guy?
Well, I think everyone starts off as more than a nice guy, but kind of like very passive, and they have to find themselves first before they can really get into the nitty gritty of who they are as a teacher. That's not to say that I when I first started didn't expect a lot from my students, and I still do, but you get seasoned, and all the tricks that the little kids play. I had too much homework, or I had soccer practice last night. So then you understand, you get to know what to say to that and how to nicely tell them that, if they didn't do as well as you thought they were going to do in the lesson, what needs to change. Teaching the older kids, the high school kids, and so I had some students at Eastman that were undergrads. That's very enjoyable, especially the really focused ones. And that's when, I can expect a lot more from them than the smaller kids.
No, just today it was announced that that Universal has just been cleared to buy EMI, which is now going to bring the total number of major labels with classical music down to 2 or 3. You just put out a CD on your own label. So to paraphrase Simon and Garfunkel, John, is the CD really dead?
I don't know if the CD itself is dead. I know with iTunes, it revolutionized the way we purchase music. So now instead of getting an actual physical object, a CD or an album, people go out and they purchase just a single track, or if they want the whole CD. So I think it's not dead. It's changing. It's revolutionized. But
So why put out a CD?
we wanted to put out a CD because, we worked together, and, it was a fun project we decided to do, just to share our music with those that, couldn't come to a concert, just to have a physical artifact of our performance of particular pieces at a certain given time in our development.
Performers, especially performers like you who enjoy playing live, have very different takes on that recording process. What was it like for you?
The recording process, it's a lot of work. It takes a long time. And working with my brother helped because it kind of lessened the workload on an individual. You could, I could get his opinion as to what was good and what needed to be fixed. So yeah, it was fun, a lot of work, but
You two guys could live anywhere, but you've chosen to stay in Rochester. So very briefly, why, Joe?
Well, our family's here. We grew up here. We have our roots here. And 90% of our musical training has been sought here and obtained here. It just has a lot of history and tradition for us. And we're, very happy to be here and share our development with the community and our teachers and friends, family.
We are very happy that you were here today. I want to thank you very much, violinist John Irrera, Joseph Irrera, our pianist, and you brought your page turner too.
Yep, Alex Lee. He's undergrad violinist at Eastman and an excellent page turner.
He was indeed. Our executive producer is Gene Fisher. Our audio technician is Andrew Croucher with help from Jeremy Steinkamp. And our video stream was coordinated by Jeff Beach. Broadcast of Backstage Pass is made possible in part by a grant from the Gouverneur Arts Fund at Rochester Area Community Foundation, encouraging support of the arts. I'm your producer and host, Julia Figueras, with many thanks again to the Irrera Brothers and, of course, Alex, our page turner. Backstage Pass is a production of WXXI Public Broadcasting.